Okay, today I'm going to do my TED Talk about why Afghanistan may never find peace. Let's get some pre-context, okay? Afghanistan has a tremendous history before it was known to become Afghanistan. It was first part of the Eastern Byzantine Empire. It was also widely known as the Persian Empire before being split between Iran and Afghanistan. There was a battle between Darius and Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great had a lot of influence on the culture of Afghanistan, and there's a lot of type of archaeology and proof of his stuff and the arts in the city of Herat. Also, too, Genghis Khan's nephew had attacked Afghanistan in the past and left about 1,000 of his people, which they refer to as the Azarat. Also, too, Afghanistan was attacked by Indian monarchy, by King Vishnuppa at one time. So let's go a little bit before that. We have the end of the Bronze Age and caves. Afghan men were found during the start of civilization, early 50,000. There was proof of farming near the Hindu Kush mountain, which is proof to why Afghanistan has some of the best topography known to the world. Unfortunately, a lot of the artifacts that were found in the past were destroyed by centuries of war, by the British, but mainly by the Russians and Taliban during the Soviet invasion. But some of that history can still be found in the Kabul History Museum. Talk about the people. So many ethnic groups in Afghanistan, right? We have the Pashtuns, which is about 42%. We have the Tajiks, 27%. The Uzbekis, 9%. The Hazara, the Mongols, also 9%. We have the Aymak, 4%. Turkmens, 3%. And Baluik, 2%. And the other 4%. Let's talk about the languages, okay? You have Dari, which constitute about 50% of the language. You have Pashto, covering about 35% of the language. That's the tribal language, known dominantly before Persian. It covers about all the languages spoken outside of Kabul primarily. You have the Turkic languages, about 11%, and then 4% other languages. The religions of Afghanistan. In the past time, centuries ago, there were sects of Buddhism found in Kandahar, which is there's proof in idols and rocks. You also have to, when Persia was ruling, that there was the creation of Zoroastrianism, which has a lot of influence from early Buddhism, and at the same time they found great allies with India. But now, of course, the dominant religion is Sunniism, with areas having a Shia majority as well, like Herat. You have the topography. The Helmand River, spanning about 715 feet, provides the country its hydration and sanitation and stability, of course. You have the Pamir Mountains, which touch China. You have the topography that helps Afghanistan fight guerrilla warfare during the Soviet invasion. You also have the Southwest, which is a humid, barren, desert, dry climate, and you have the Eastern Mountains, which are tropical but humid, but provide a lot of the beautiful vegetation. Let's talk about the last century, okay? There was the Great Game, which was a time when Great Britain and Russia were fighting for domination into Afghanistan. Fortunately, you have the King Amunullah, which was able to oust the British. And at one time, he helped sign the Treaty of Rawalpindi, which helped oust the British and let them leave after 60 years of trying to conquest the nation. On the counter to that, Russia was a little more successful and dominating and slowly easing their influence into Afghanistan. You have World War II, okay? The Afghans were actually hosted the Germans and the Italians They hosted the Germans and the Italians, but because of international pressure, they were kicked out. Also, two important facts about King Amanullah was that in 1923 he instituted Afghanistan's first constitution. He had an influential trip in 1927 to Turkey, which helped him bring so many great changes into Afghanistan, like removing slavery, rehauling the taxation system in Afghanistan, education reforms for men and women, founding the Afghani and the Bank Imeli. This was such a critical time that helped Russia plant its seed. So Russia had strong communications with Afghanistan. 1971 to 1978 supplies Afghanistan with millions of dollars in weaponry, bases, artillery, tanks. And also, too, the Soviets helped oust anybody who didn't support the socialist regime. Here you have the last king of Afghanistan, who was ousted by Dawood Khan, unfortunately. And then later on, when the Soviets invaded, you have Hafizullah, who was a Marxist, who was killed by Soviets. On the contrary, though, Dawood Khan was killed by his fellow countrymen, his Afghan communists. So this was Russia's Vietnam. This is December 24th, 1979. Russia feels betrayed, and they felt betrayed because there was a strong communist sects and government in Afghanistan prior to the invasion. But in reality, whatever talks they had with the UN during the first 2-3 years of the Soviet invasion, it was all bullshit. They really wanted to use Afghanistan because it was such a strategic location between Asia and the Middle East. So on January 1st, 1980, 50,000 Soviet troops are there. About a month after, it's 85,000 troops, okay? And then unfortunately, Afghans, they're afraid because they have weaponry from World War I. So their numbers dwindle from 90K to 30K. America tries its best at first initially. It's not enough, but that's what they do initially. They stop sending 17 tons of grains to Russia. They don't allow them to fish in our waters, and they don't support them in the Moscow Olympics. So they're refugees. In 1984, there were 4 million refugees in Pakistan and 2 million in Iran. The numbers would grow to 6 million with 2 million refugees stuck in Afghanistan. Years later, in 1992, after the war, about 1.2 million returned. Project Cyclone, okay? The CIA takes billions and billions, puts it into Kalashnikovs, Stingers, mines. They send all that money and weapons to the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence services. They hire a local mujahideen who they know will help them in the future, and they say, hey, we're going to train you guys, go fight our war. So that's what happens. And then, so with the help of China and Great Britain, of course, and Muslim nations like Pakistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, between 500,000 and 2 million lives are lost. This is where the CIA can take notes of what history has caused them, okay? You don't just pump a bunch of money into a country, pump a bunch of money to different groups, and think everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. That's where we messed up in Afghanistan when we sent all that aid to Pakistan and to help fight the Mujahideen. We didn't talk about building schools. We didn't talk about strong talks. We didn't talk about helping build infrastructure. Some of these things might have had a greater impact. So you have the Mujahideen's corruption. They just fought a war that probably caused lots of PTSD. They hated Westerners. And they raped women in broad daylight. It was sickening what they did. They would torture civilians, kill them. Anyone who didn't grow heroin crops, they would straight up kill them. The Taliban actually has some honor and ethics, which a lot of people don't. Initially, they were actually quite ethical, just like the Mujahideen. But they put a strong offensive, but they created strong, tough Islamic practices. The Taliban initially burned the heroin crops, but that money was too tempting for them too. So you have Muhammad Omar, which is Taliban, and you have bin Laden, who was early Al-Qaeda. So they strongly oppose infidels. They both have children to help foster their relationship together. Muhammad Omar was known for bombing the Buddhas of Bamyan because it supported polytheism. So some big moves before 9/11 was Masood was killed by Osama bin Laden because their values didn't align. So he had two suicide bombers pretend to be journalists, and they blew up, killed them. And then this is where they should have paid attention to the data, because Osama bin Laden had bombings in Africa. There were whispers with top Afghan officials that something was going to happen. Condoleezza Rice and George Tenet, they really dropped the ball on this one. 9/11, Twin Towers were hit, Pentagon was hit. We all remember that day. Bush starts an unconstitutional war as a repercussion. They're looking for Saddam Hussein, they're looking for Osama bin Laden. They ousted Taliban out of Kabul and slowly out of cities like Kandahar in their respective years. Millions in funding went to Afghanistan and the National Army. So people think we went to, Afghanistan for all the right reasons, but in reality, let's be honest. Okay, we did go there. We established democracy. We killed some of the big bad guys, but really we were there for the coal. We were there for the gold. We were there for the iron. There for the lead, the gas, the petroleum, the diamonds, the salt, the sulfur, emerald, lithium, which people take for granted. Very, very valuable. Lapis lazuli, ruby, wool, and of course heroin. And let's put it simply, Bush started this war unconstitutionally. Obama put more money. Obama did probably the most killings under his regime. He increased troops. Didn't make the situation any better. Trump made a controversial decision to fire the top general, which I think was one of his mistakes. He dropped the biggest bomb recorded in history in a cave. And honestly, he only said he was going to leave Afghanistan because it was going to help him in re-election. Today, as we know, Biden said the military was leaving Bagram Airport. They're all gone. A lot of looters were arrested. A lot of eyes were in Afghanistan, rightfully so. People say by the end of the month, the Taliban just might be in Kabul. Hey, you have effects of the occupation, PTSD, 2 decades of war. How much progression really happened with Afghanistan and the USA? The Afghan National Army, they're handing all their weapons to the Taliban. Thousands have already been killed. All these 9/11 skirmishes, whether battles in Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, Philippines, they displaced 37 million people out of their homes. Also, too, within these months, the Taliban have destroyed multi-million-dollar helicopters like it's nothing. Taliban. There's a high chance that the Taliban nowadays will probably kill all the interpreters in Afghanistan. Those are the same interpreters that helped made it easier for the troops, helped made it easier for the Afghan National Army, helped bridge bonds, helped see who the real bad guys are. And now this is a spotlight on America to do the right thing. What do? We take action, okay? Message your president, message your congressional officials, do the right thing. I did it. It took no time. I had spoke my piece. So why will there be no peace in the future? Let's keep it simple. Strategic location. 2, resources. And here's my one piece solution. This has to be solved by Afghanistan. We cannot let any country come in, regardless of what happened. 9/11 created crazy regulations in airports in America, and we need to have the fine line between racially profiling and being smart with how we cite people at airports. So what's the solution? It has to be Afghans only. The reassessment of political route made solely by Afghans. Like I said, checks and balances. Hardcore stance on corruption. That's probably the most important bit. I thought it could be even a bit Taliban-esque, meaning if a political person steals taxation money, cut off a pinky. It's pretty extreme, but you need extreme measures in 2021 in a third world country to get close to becoming a world power. maybe one day. And also two, once they find a solution, don't change it.